Today I'm sharing everything I read in January. I only read 6 books this month, and I'm going to talk to you about all 6 of those titles and hopefully give you some recommendations or things to avoid if we have similar tastes, or even if we don't. I'm going to give you some details about some books and you can decide if you want to read them or not. So the first one I actually started in December, but I finished it in January, so we're going to talk about it. And it was the House of Earth and Blood, which is book 1 of the Crescent City series by Sarah Maas. And I read this because my friend recommended it to me, and a few of us were all gonna read it together. If that had not been the case, I would have given up on this book because it was so long and so slow to get started. I feel like it wasn't until the second half of the book that I was even really interested in what was happening or cared about the characters. But I will say by that point I was into it, and by the very end I was dying to know what happened. So if you can stick with the first half of a book being extremely boring and slow, and you want to read a fantasy romance, go for it. After finishing House of Earth and Blood, which was very long, I found a nice little break in A Psalm for the Wild-Built, which is another first in a series called Monk and Robot. That's by Becky Chambers. I loved the characters in this book, and I also loved how optimistic the perspective on the future world was. I feel like so many future-based fiction books are post-apocalyptic and negative, and this was the world kind of got bad in the ways we already see it getting bad, and then we figured out how to make it better, and it was just really positive. And yeah, I'm on the list at the library to read the second one, so I'm excited about that. Next, I read Hester by Lori Lico Albanese. I think that's how you say that. It's about a girl who falls in love with Nathaniel Hawthorne. They fall in love with each other, but it's about the girl, not necessarily about Nathaniel Hawthorne as much, which I think was really fun. It was kind of sad overall for a romantic book, but I really liked all the imagery of the embroidery, and that's just so involved throughout the whole novel. And so as someone who sews, I just really loved all the descriptions of the color and this texture, and that was really well done. So I feel like the author probably embroiders or knows something about embroidery. Yeah, that was an okay one. Another friend of mine recommended Island Beneath the Sea by Isabel Allende. This was another kind of sad one, just because slavery is sad. Yeah, it was just interesting from a historic perspective. So all of the things that were true about the story were kind of fascinating and interesting, but the story itself came off as this it sounded like an oral narration of somebody's life. I was frustrated because it felt like the characters' motivations for doing things weren't really explained, so it just kind of left things a little bit flat for me. But other than that, it was good. Okay, and so then I also read a nonfiction book this month called The Art of Gathering: How We Meet and Why It Matters by Priya Parker, and it was excellent. My mom recommended this one to me because I was in the midst of throwing this party to celebrate my elopement, so basically my wedding, and it was the perfect thing to read when I was about to be hosting kind of one of the biggest parties I'll ever throw, at my house at least. And I didn't get to try all of the things that I read about, but they have stuck with me, and I'm excited to host another event because I feel like I just learned so many little detailed things that I can do to help people feel more welcome and have more fun, and just for an event to sort of be an event and not just people at a place. You should read it if you are a person who throws any kind of party, or if you host meetings. There's a lot of really good information about how to like meaningfully gather in the workplace. but also socially. So I can't imagine a person who this book does not apply to. It would highly recommend, but it's not a story. So if that's what you're here for, I guess that's not for you. Okay, and then the last book that I actually just finished like last night at the very end of January, or in February, very end of January, I read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, who also wrote The Night Circus, I believe is the one. I really liked The Night Circus, and so I was excited to read this. This book was confusing on purpose, but also for me a little too confusing. Like at the end of the book, I still can't tell you exactly like what really happened to the characters, and maybe that's the point. Maybe it's like it's about stories, and so maybe the point is like the story matters, not the ending. I'm not sure. It's kind of a head trip. Yeah, it's weird. It was very good, but I don't know what happens in it. Okay, so those are the 6 books that I read in January, and I hope that I was able to add at least one little thing to your reading list, because I'm in between books right now, and I know how kind of annoying it is when you don't have your next read picked out. So hopefully that helped you pick something new to read and avoid something that you may not enjoy with a little extra information there. In the comments, I would love for you to recommend things. If you've read these and you are getting a vibe of my reading preferences and you have a recommendation for me, I would love that. And yeah, that's everything I read in January.